Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Mark Snyder from Ohio Exopolitics. I hope I think I may have been a little late logging in there. Sorry about that. I'm working on some new material related to population, and there's just so much information here, and I'm trying to weed through it. Maybe we'll dive right into a clip that I've been listening to. It's called Megacities. Megacities reflect a growing urbanization trend. And remember, we've been talking about Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a little country next to India that has currently 167 million people in it. It's about the size of Iowa or the size of Ohio. Now, I'll have to verify this statistic. These population statistics are not always perfectly correct, but my understanding is Ohio has like 11.5 million people. And here's a country that's about our size with 167 million people in it. Bangladesh has a mega city, one of these giant cities that are categorized as, if a city has more than 15 million people in the urban area, it's considered a mega city. And Dhaka in Bangladesh is considered the world's fastest growing mega city. So it has it has probably roughly about 15 million people in it now, and the population has been doubling every 10 years. A third of the population of Dhaka resides in these horrible slums. Raw sewage flows into lakes and rivers nearby that are so polluted they are beyond treatment. They have water shortages every 2 weeks, followed by riots. It's a ghastly place with horrible living conditions. And one of the reasons I do these shows on population is so that we don't, as a country, allow this tremendous influx of these immigrants from the third world, so we don't end up in this state with these mega cities. But I'm afraid we're headed that way, which I think is something we don't really want. So let's listen to this clip about megacities.
Finally tonight, the population boom in the world's poorest urban areas. Our report comes from a Global Pulse series about the growth of the so-called megacities. It centers on Dhaka, capital of the South Asian nation Bangladesh. This story was prepared by the team of Eric German and Solana Pine.
This is a good day for 4-year-old Shahadat. When he complained of hunger, his father had a piece of fruit to give him.
When he tells me he's hungry, I try to bring him food after work. If I can't buy any food, he has to live with the hunger.
Abdurrahim's struggle to feed his family began 3 years ago. That's when one of South Asia's biggest rivers, the Brahmaputra, washed away the land his family had farmed for generations.
My land was over there. Now it's water. It's a river.
He now drives a rented rickshaw in a town across from his former home and earns about $1 a day. Barely able to afford the rent for this windowless, mud-floored shack, he's decided to move his family to Dhaka, the country's capital. He and his wife Shapla say they'll borrow the $10 they need for the trip and catch a bus within the week, joining a wave of some 400,000 migrants who move to Dhaka every year.
I feel terrible, but we have to leave everyone we know, all our relatives and neighbors, and take our kids to an alien place.
The city they're moving to is growing so fast, each new census is quickly outdated. But local experts estimate it's now home to 15 million people. Dhaka is perched on the leading edge of a global trend. For the first time in human history, the world has become more urban than rural. By mid-century, some 80% of the Earth's population will live in cities, many of them in the exploding slums of the developing world. For good or ill, Dhaka is setting an example.
You are seeing the early future of the world, which is not a very pleasant thought at this point in time. Half of the population of the developing world will be in the urban centers. within the next decade.
If you want to know what that might look like, Dhaka is among the best places to visit. The World Bank called it the fastest growing of the world's 20 or so megacities, urban areas with populations over 10 million. It's also one of the poorest. Vast slums dot every neighborhood and house at least a third of its people. In less than 15 years, the United Nations predicts Dhaka's population will surpass that of Shanghai, Mexico City, or New York.
Well, I think if you simply project the present into the future, then obviously we are headed to no good place.
At the end of British rule in 1947, Dhaka had just 250,000 residents. 2.5 decades later, when Bangladesh won independence from Pakistan, the city had nearly 1.7 million. Since then, rural poverty and frequent natural disasters have pushed Bangladeshis to Dhaka at breakneck speed. Each new decade is seeing the city's population.
So Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, has been doubling in size every decade and is what is now being called a mega city, which is when the population in the urban area is over 15 million, they call it a mega city. Now, there's two ways to categorize populations of cities. You can rank them by what they call the city proper, which is just a city basically by itself, or the whole urban area. I have a list here of populations of cities based on the urban area, which pulls in some of the suburban areas, etc. Now, the first city on this list is Tokyo. They call it Tokyo-Yokohama. I think what's happened in Japan is these two cities are so close together. They're categorizing the urban area as one place. It's a population of 37 million. Jakarta, Indonesia, has a population of 26 million. Seoul-Incheon, South Korea, has a population of 22 million. Delhi, India, 22 million. Shanghai, China, 21 million. Manila, Philippines, 21 million. Karachi, Pakistan, 20 million. New York City, 20 million. These are the giant populations that are forming in what are called megacities.
In the popular imagination, third world slums have been portrayed either as ladders for escaping poverty or traps where the poor get stuck. In reality, both are true, but those who climb out are quickly replaced by new migrants.
What is going to be the most scary part of this is the two worlds which in fact have been exploding side by side. The one is the world of the high-rise buildings being recreated for a small urban elite. And then there is the world of the slums.
Those we spoke with in Bangladesh said the question is not whether slums in a booming megacity like Dhaka should exist. They're the fastest growing part of this sprawling metropolis. And they herald Earth's future. Unplanned, hand-built, slum-packed cities are here, and many more are coming. The real question a city like Dhaka can help answer is what concrete steps can make them decent places to live.
The government, I think, still continues to bury its head in the sand. Somehow if you bury your head in the sand, they will just go away. It doesn't work like that.
One deceptively simple suggestion: put control over vital services in the hands of a single municipal government, accountable to the people it serves. As in many unplanned cities of its size, Dhaka's police, utilities, and roadways are controlled by a dozen or more national authorities, mostly run by political appointees.
If you, in fact, challenge the mayor that he is not doing his job, he will say that I cannot look after law enforcement in the city, I cannot even control the traffic.
Some NGOs have tried to fill the gaps, for example, finding ways to secure legal water connections for slum residents. But their successes are small scale.
But I want the government to give political commitment. What has worked? What can we take forward that works well?
With an estimated 1 million people a week moving from their rural homes into cities across the developing world, those lessons are relevant far beyond Dhaka's chaotic roads and crowded waterways.
Anything that we can make work in Dhaka probably we could make work in almost any other city. But the challenge is enormous. It's a dynamic system. Before you have sorted one, the problem becomes bigger and bigger by the day.
As do the slums, whose residents day by day, night by night, are rebuilding the urban world.
Global Post has 4 more stories from Dhaka online. Among them, a look at the lives of women who work in the city's garment factories. You can find a link to Global Post's website on Hours at newshour.pbs.org.
Let me give you again these population trends in these urban areas, in these mega cities. The population is so huge, I can't wrap my mind around it. Tokyo, Yokohama in Japan has 37 million people. Jakarta, Indonesia, 26 million people. Seoul, Incheon, South Korea, 22 million. Delhi, India, 22 million. Shanghai, China, 21 million. Manila, Philippines, 21 million. Karachi, Pakistan, 20 million. New York City, 20 million. Let me try to put this in perspective, because the only way to understand this is perspective. All of those cities that I just mentioned, which are the top 8 urban areas for population, have higher populations than the state I'm in. I live in a state of Ohio, 11.57 million population as of 2013. The state of Michigan had a 9.8 million population as of 2013, and the state of Indiana has a 6.5 million population. Now try to imagine the incredible population density of some of these giant mega cities. And the people live in squalor. At least a half of them live in these horrible slums. We should do everything in our power to stop this from happening in the United States. Okay, let me move on here. I have another clip on world population, but I want to talk a little bit about water scarcity, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. In the United States, we have an aquifer called the Ogallala Aquifer. It's about 178,000 square miles, and it supplies water for about 8 of our states. Its average depth is roughly 240 feet. It used to be. Now it's down to 80 feet. And the aquifer is so depleted it's completely empty in many areas. Now it supplies water to states like Texas, Colorado, South Dakota, Nebraska. And it was one of the aquifers that enabled the United States to be the breadbasket of the world and feed the world for the last 70 years. Well, it's an incredible state of depletion right now. And we'll get to that in a minute. Perhaps I should cover that now since I've kind of decided to go this way. We'll talk a little bit about this next topic in a minute, but let's talk about water, because there is a coming global water crisis.
Today, according to UNICEF, at least 2.6 billion people lack adequate sanitation, while 1.1 billion people live without clean drinking water, period. Water is the key component in all of our daily lives, no matter where we live. Not only for human use, but for energy, industry, agriculture, and livestock. Now, if you look at the Earth, you will notice that over 75% of our blue planet is water. The problem is, only 3% of that water is fresh water. Over 260 river basins are shared by 2 or more countries, and most of these rivers are without defined legal or institutional arrangements. Consider the Aral Sea, for example, located in Central Asia. The name Aral Sea is actually translated into Sea of Islands, referring to over 1,534 islands that once existed. Today, the Aral Sea is down to 10% of its original size. The same thing is happening in other areas that were once flourishing are now turning into desert. A report titled Avoiding Water Wars, Water Scarcity and Central Asia's Growing Importance for Stability in Afghanistan and Pakistan was recently done by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. In it, it focused on rising water tensions that could destabilize Central and South Asia. The implications of a water shortage has already caused aggravated demand for agriculture and power generation, according to the report. Water, without a doubt, is going to be a huge issue, along with oil, throughout this century. In the U.S., the world's largest body of fresh water, the Ogallala Aquifer, an underground lake that extends from the Colorado Rockies to South Dakota, going all the way down to the Texas Panhandle, with a range of 50 to 300 feet of depth. This water resource is what has made America's plains the breadbasket of the world. Unfortunately, like an oil well, this won't last forever. The Ogallala used to have an average depth of 240 feet. Today, its average depth is just 80 feet. Recently, a story done in Texas about a town named Happy, who has simply run out of water for its farms. What once was a booming town that relied on the Ogallala Aquifer has now seen its depths of underground water fall between 0 to 50 feet. Many wells are completely dry, and farmers have been forced to hand over their land to the government's Conservation Reserve Program in exchange for grants. The U.S. Department of Agriculture recently stated, "The supply is going to run out and the plains will become uneconomical to farm." 60 years is what the U.S. Department of Agriculture gives it. This is a scary thought when you think about the way we have built cities, towns, and homes around something that is simply unsustainable. Consider the Colorado River as well. A river that used to run into the Pacific, not anymore. By the time the water fills the pools of Vegas and irrigates and provides drinking water throughout the West, not a drop of water makes it into the ocean. Of course, we can't help but comment on how it is government who essentially planned people to live in the middle of nowhere, to live in deserts. If a free market would have reigned, we would see a much more practical living condition with very little middle-of-the-desert living, not only relying on cheap oil, but the relocation of precious water. While researching the water crisis, FutureMoneyTrends.com came across studies about how in some places in Africa, so much water has been pulled out of the ecosystem in order to bottle it and send it around the world, some towns have become deserts. As the world population grows, the water crisis will become front-page news. According to the consulting company McKinsey & Company, by 2030, global water demand will be 40% greater than today's accessible, reliable, environmentally sustainable supply. FutureMoneyTrends.com members should have no doubt that this is 100% tied into agriculture and rising food price inflation. 71% of global water withdrawals today go to irrigating our food. The U.S. government has screwed us with subsidies that are handed out to farmers who plant in areas that need an excessive amount of water. Subsidies are also handed out in misguided attempts to turn food into fuel, something that in our opinion is not only driving food costs up, but is wasting precious water resources. Like oil, it takes water for many goods. A cotton t-shirt, 400 gallons. Denim jeans, 1,800 gallons. A car, 39,000 gallons. A board of lumber, 5.4 gallons. A barrel of beer, 1,500 gallons. Gallon of paint, 12 gallons. 1 ton of steel, 62,000 gallons. A piece of paper, 2.6 gallons. Consider how much water it takes to grow our food, feed our animals, and ourselves.
Water. Water scarcity is going to be a huge problem in the future. It makes you wonder what the world will be like in 2050. Well, here's a clip that'll tell you how it will be.
The Earth's population has nearly doubled in the last 100 years as climate change, lack of land to grow food, and overconsumption of the myth, and life as we know it on the planet appears to be.
The new month claims tonight international vapor trails laid by international organisations could be filling central west skies with dangerous chemicals.
Especially mosquitoes that carry diseases like malaria and dengue fever. So we can use these same strategies, not just to control fertilization, things like insects, but also in humans as well.
Villagers in eastern India are sick from drinking contaminated water. It's a problem for many in rural India due to a lack of clean water.
Too many people consuming too much stuff. And we, the rich, consume far too much stuff. And yet people won't talk about it. An environmental commodity prices, the price of oil,
question is, can we make the changes necessary fast enough?
Imagine a world without boundaries in space or resources. This idea is easy to pursue if you go to Canada or Siberia, but not for long. Due to advances in modern medicine and the associated extended life expectancy, the world population has been growing substantially. As of this moment, there are 7.2 billion souls on Earth, adding 200,000 to it every day. It's only a matter of time before those countries will be full as well. Scientists believe that in 2100 we will reach the population capacity. 10 billion people will walk the Earth. Not all are as fortunate to live accordingly to the Western standards. The planet can only sustain 4 billion of those rich men. In this short documentary we will discuss and further define the problem of overpopulation. Besides that, we might have found a very intriguing and much needed solution. Think of the colonization of North America in the 15th century, but then on a much bigger scale. Another place, unknown and strange, but similar enough to make it our new home. Mankind's final frontier. Space. Overpopulation means that the area cannot provide enough resources to the vast number of people in it. To comply to the bare necessities of life, the demand is bigger than what the Earth can provide. If we continue to live the way we do now, natural resources like water, oil and wood will finally run out. The battle for fresh water is already a big issue in Africa. Poor people simply cannot cover the costs of water, and the gap between the rich and downtrodden is getting bigger and bigger. This and the fact that people are also forced to live closely to each other, causing friction and irritations, can lead to major social tensions. But these social changes are not the only changes that occur. Strong growth in populace affects the Earth and her inhabitants in various other ways, such as...
Most people in the alternative movement will say there is no problem with the world's population because there is plenty of space. You could fit all the people in the world into Texas easily if you had to. Well, that's true. For that matter, they could all move to Antarctica. That has 4.5 million square miles of space, but unfortunately the temperature is 30, 40, 50 below zero most all the time. So that's not a place where people are going to typically of their own free will migrate to. People go to where the temperatures are moderate and there is fresh water. And unfortunately that's where, or fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, that's where our forests are located. And our forests are the moderators of weather. The forests provide shade for the ground to keep the soil from getting too hot. The forests provide habitat for animals. The forests absorb lots of excess water, which stops landslides and mudslides. The forests can slow the wind down. These forests have a tremendous moderating effect on our weather. They provide oxygen for us. But we're destroying our forests at an incredible rate to build these megacities and to build urban areas and to build suburbs. And we're losing many species of plants and animals at an alarming rate because of this. See, the booming human population has also a negative effect on the wildlife and a negative effect on our weather, believe it or not, because these large areas with trees and plants tend to moderate our climate. So the more we destroy these forested areas, the more intense weather we're going to see. Now, the other big problem with population is in order to feed all these people, we have to have agriculture. And agriculture uses 70% of the water of the world. And as I was talking about earlier, and as the earlier clip stated, large aquifers now, like the Ogallala Aquifer, are being depleted. The Ogallala Aquifer is the water supply for the breadbasket of the world, which has been roughly in South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. There's a town in Texas called Happy, they're not very happy anymore because they can't farm because the Ogallala Aquifer there is completely depleted. Scientists estimate it will take 6,000 years for that aquifer to restore itself normally.
The other dome is to simulate Earth. This dome is completely self-sufficient and does not require anything from the outside to operate. Eventually, this building can be transported to or be built on Mars. There has been previous experiments to simulate Earth, such as the Biosphere 3 and the Biosphere 2.
Now, in this part of the clip, they're talking about potentially revitalizing Mars and having people move to Mars. Well, I think it would be much easier for us to just start using birth control and to moderate our population on this planet before we destroy it.
Complex reached an efficiency of 85%. The Biosphere 2 is a facility of the University of Arizona and is currently used to research ecosystems. With almost 2.5 acres, this complex can support 8 people and features 2,500 square meters of agriculture, 1,900 square meters of rainforest, 1,400 square meters of desert, 1,300 square meters of savanna, 850 square meters of ocean with a coral reef, 450 square meters of mangrove, and sufficient space to live. This facility was also used to research space colonization. In order to have a facility on Mars, it must meet certain requirements to withstand the hostile environment. Vacuum, high solar radiation, and extreme temperatures exhibit forces on the edifice. Inside, there's a system that regulates the atmosphere and circulates the air. Food and water are produced and recycled. The facility must be big and efficient enough to sustain a large amount of people indefinitely. 95% of Mars' atmosphere is carbon dioxide, but even more of this carbon dioxide is stored in the southern polar cap. The temperature there is currently minus 126 degrees Celsius. If the temperature is increased by 4 degrees Celsius, this carbon dioxide will be released. Due to initiated greenhouse effect, this temperature will continue to rise. Eventually, the whole polar cap will melt and the pressure would increase to about 30% of that of Earth. This is enough for people to go out and walk the planet without any special kind of suit to endure the pressure. There are a couple of methods to warm the planet, but only 3 of them look promising. The first one is to build a mirror in space. With a diameter of 125 kilometers, this mirror will reflect sunlight to the southern pole. The second method is to find asteroids that are rich in ammonia. The idea is to redirect these and let them crash onto Mars. Ammonia is a strong greenhouse gas. It should induce a rise in temperature. The last solution is one we're very familiar with, a method we're actually using right now: factories. But then the factories on Mars will produce greenhouse gases as their main product. The atmosphere is now warm enough to support liquid water, but this is not enough to have plant life. A lot of nitrogen is still trapped in ice. But once all that ice melts, and a lot of nutrients have been added to the atmosphere and water, plant life can finally begin and generate oxygen. Humans are social animals. We build our lives around interactions with other individuals. Living in an isolated system with limited variety in interpersonal relationships can cause a severe strain on our mental well-being. Loneliness, fear, paranoia, and depression can wear a man down. Traveling to Mars gives rise to problems as well. Depression too, but also insomnia, agitation, anger, and a decrease in performance. All this needs to be studied in the TESOL program, so the colonization mission can be adjusted to minimize these social effects. But during this investigation, the test team will have little to no privacy, as everything is recorded and documented. According to experiments in Antarctica, a mixed crew of different cultures and origins works the best. The crew needs to understand the design and construction of the whole mission. They need to know they can expect psychic and physical changes, and they need time to adjust to it. They need to work very hard, but also get enough time to relax the mind. Selecting the right people is crucial for the success of the expansion of the human empire.
interesting clip talking about the potential of terraforming Mars and revitalizing it by melting the pole on Mars, where all this carbon dioxide is stored as ice. And if the pole is melted, then Mars would have an atmosphere, primarily of carbon. Excuse me, that's my big dog. Carbon dioxide. Let me play this next clip on human population.
The planet that we all live on is a big place, but we are very quickly overcrowding it. Many people don't want to even acknowledge the problem that is growing around every one of you watching this video. But planet Earth, our home, in some places already has too many human inhabitants, and the world's population continues to increase. So what will happen when the world becomes overpopulated? Well, no animal species can survive without enough food, water, shelter, and certain other resources, and human beings are no different. However, this kind of world already exists in third world countries. So how do we stop this from happening in our own countries? Imagine your towns or cities overflowing with people trying to survive, trying to eat and feed their families. People would fight to get the resources they need, crime would rise, and your streets would look like you were living in a movie scene. Human overpopulation occurs when the number of people in a group exceeds the carrying capacity of the region that they occupy. This can be the result of an increase of births, a decline in mortality rates, an increase of immigration, or depletion of resources. The human population has been growing since the end of the Black Death, but the most significant increase has been in the last 50 years and is due to medical advancements. Currently, in the year 2014, the world's human population is estimated at over 7 billion. Scientists have estimated that the Earth's carrying capacity is between 4 billion and 16 billion. So with this estimate, overpopulation has already occurred, and some believe that at the rate it is increasing, by 2040 the population will be between 8 and 10.5 billion. The main concern with these increases is that the planet may not be able to sustain present or larger numbers of human inhabitants. We could see environmental problems such as rising levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide, global warming and pollution, increased demand for fresh water and food leading to starvation and malnutrition, overconsumption of natural resources like fossil fuels, and a deterioration in living conditions. So how do we prevent human population becoming out of control? Well, almost no current world leader is willing to acknowledge the problem, much less take the necessary steps to resolve it. The Chinese government did impose a limit to the amount of children one couple are allowed to have, but people found various strategies to get around the restriction. In the past decade, China has seen an increase in population of over 61 million people, but the one-child policy has prevented an estimated 250 million births in the same span of about 10 years. However, with such an alarming rate of population growth in other countries around the world, it is an undeniable fact that the world's governments will be forced to act and start a program that will reduce the levels of humans. They may start by introducing educational programs that teach people not to have so many kids, or maybe offer some sort of incentive in some way. If this approach didn't work, then they may go down the route China did and put a ban on more than one child per family. If this didn't work, then hysterectomies, castrations, or some form of birth control may be enforced. If you have too many kids in the government's eyes and become pregnant again, they may force you to have an abortion, and some newborn children may purposely be made infertile. But if it ever got so bad that the governments of the world had to do something seriously extreme, then maybe age restrictions would be the solution. These are just a few ideas, and there is probably lots more that could be done before murdering people was an option. Maybe by the time our planet is massively overpopulated, some sort of technical solution would be available, like an extraterrestrial settlement somewhere in our solar system. But if you've been watching this video and think, no, this won't happen, or this won't affect me, then you've only got to look at the number of starving people in the world to realise that this problem is real. And if human population increasing estimates are correct, then it may be happening a lot faster than you might think. I hope you found this subject interesting. Make sure to check out some of my other videos, like and subscribe for loads more stuff to come. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
As never before in the long history of Earth and its people, wars and crimes as well as manifold brutalities prevail, which constantly increase in step with overpopulation. The old venerable relationships between our planet and man have changed drastically for the worst, especially since the middle of the 19th century, and the trend is continuing noticeably. Not only has mankind sunk into an abyss of boundless depravity, but it has also brought this decay to the planet and the entire animal world and nature as a whole. All governments and those responsible and the majority of the population have become keepers of evil. The situation on the earth is quite dire. Here in the United States, we're very, very, very fortunate that we've started to see some of this now, but we haven't been able to really see it all, and I would really like to keep that to be the case, because we're destroying the natural world at an increasing rate, and the population of man is increasing exponentially. There's a scientist named David Suzuki that speaks about overpopulation being exponential here. Let's listen to this clip.
You know, there are a lot of things that we can fix in this world. We can do something about it. We can design the cities that we live in, the kinds of houses we live in, the market, the economy, currency, how many trees we're going to cut, how many fish we're going to catch. Those things human beings can manage and control because we create them and do them. But some things are facts of life we have to live with. The speed of light, gravity, entropy, the first and second laws of thermodynamics. Those are things that we have to accept and work ourselves around. And there is another one that is absolutely crucial. It's a mathematical reality called exponential growth. If something is growing at 1% a year, it'll double in 70 years. 2% a year, it'll double in 35 years. 3% a year in 24 years. 4%, 17 and a half years. Anything growing exponentially will double in a predictable length of time. Now I'm going to show you why all of this stuff about we got to keep growing, keep the economy growing, we've got to keep everything growing, is ultimately suicidal. I'm going to give you a system analogous to the planet, and that's a test tube full of food for bacteria. So the test tube and food is the planet, and the bacteria are us. Now I'm going to introduce one bacterial cell in, and it's going to divide every minute. That's exponential growth. So at time 0 at the beginning, there's one cell. 1 minute, there are 2. 2 minutes, there are 4. 3 minutes, there are 8. 4 minutes, 16. That's exponential growth. And at 60 minutes, the test tube is completely packed with bacteria, and there's no food left. So we have a 60-minute growth cycle. When is the test tube only half full? Well, of course, the answer is at 59 minutes. Even though it's been chugging along for 59 minutes, it's only half full, but 1 minute later, it'll be completely filled. So that means at 58 minutes, it's 25% full. 57 minutes, it's 12.5% full. At 55 minutes of a 60-minute cycle, it's 3% full. At 55 minutes, one of the bacteria says, hey guys, I've been thinking, we got a problem. We got a population problem. The other bacteria would say, Jack, what the hell have you been smoking, man? 97% of the test tube's empty, and we've been around for 55 minutes. And they'd be 5 minutes away from filling it. So, say bacteria are no smarter than humans. At 59 minutes, they go, oh my God, Jack was right. We got 1 minute left. What are we going to do? Well, don't give any money to those economists that are saying we got to keep growing all the time. Give it to those scientists. So they massively inject money into the scientific community. And guess what? In less than a minute, those bacterial scientists invent 3 new test tubes full of food. That'd be like us finding 3 more planets that we could use. What happens? At 60 minutes, the first test tube's full. 61 minutes, the second's full. 62 minutes, all 4 are full. By quadrupling the amount of food and space, we buy 2 extra minutes. Our home is the biosphere. It's fixed and finite. It can't grow. And we've got to learn to live within that finite world. every scientist I've talked to agrees with me, we've already passed the 59th minute.
Well, let's hope it's not as grim as people like David Suzuki talk about. But we do know that in India, 4 million people are born on the street, 4 million people die on the street every year. There are currently 9,000 new births every hour, which results in a city of about 200,000 every day, a city the size of Cincinnati. We have a little country which is called Bangladesh, which is right beside India. Now, Bangladesh has been doubling its population every decade, and it currently has a population of 167 million people crammed into the size of a state like Ohio or Iowa. Now, to keep that in perspective, the population of Ohio is 11.5 million. The population of the state of Michigan is about 9.8 million. The population of Indiana is about 6 to 7 million. Imagine any one of those states with 167 million people in it. It's something I don't even think we can imagine. The people would be living in squalor, the air pollution, the water pollution, the destruction of the natural world, the traffic jams, the water shortages, the fuel shortages. We can't even wrap our minds around that kind of disaster. There's a trend in the world today. It's called megacities, and this is something else we can't really understand. By some measurements, if you measure just the urban area, these cities, like for example in Japan, Tokyo, and Yokohama, merge into one urban area of 37 million people. Jakarta, Indonesia has 26 million people. These are populations in one city that are 3 times bigger than the population of the whole state I reside in. So, again, these numbers are something that is very, very difficult for us to even begin to wrap our minds around. In Dhaka, Bangladesh, we have a megacity forming. As I said, its population has expanded dramatically, and they have huge water shortages. Every 2 or 3 weeks they run out of water, and they have riots. About a third of the people live in slums. It's a ghastly state of affairs. In the remaining few minutes of our show this morning, I thought I would play a clip where the Meyer material talks about world population and world population issues. So let's listen.
An extensive and threatening topic nobody dares to address. Planet Earth and its inhabitants are suffering from diverse ills caused singularly and exclusively by man himself. These already existing ills, however, will continue to proliferate until finally everything completely deteriorates. The Earth's population is plagued by famines, energy shortages, epidemics, environmental pollution, degeneration, terrorism, dictatorship, anarchism, slavery, excessive increase of waste materials, racial hatred, food shortages, destruction of rainforests, the greenhouse effect, pollution of lakes, streams and oceans, hatred towards asylum seekers, radioactive emissions, chemical pollution of water, air, plants, food, human beings and animals, crime, murder, mass murders, manslaughter, alcoholism, hatred of strangers, oppression, hatred of one's fellow man, extremism, sectarianism, drug addiction, overpopulation, annihilation of animal species, war, violence, torture and capital punishment, general mismanagement, water contamination, eradication of plant species, hatred, vice, jealousy, lovelessness, lack of logic, false humanitarianism, lack of housing, increased traffic, destruction of arable land, unemployment, the collapse of healthcare, the collapse of care for the elderly, destruction of nature, the collapse of solid waste removal, and the lack of living space, among others. In spite of the many efforts, mankind's problems are not decreasing but, instead, continue to rise steadily in direct proportion to population increases. Mankind on Earth has always tried to fight an old ill with a new one, but, truthfully, this path is leading to man's final destruction. The scenario may be compared to a debt that grows immeasurably to the point where it can no longer even be paid, as is the case when an individual goes into debt and attempts to pay it off by going further into debt, only to furnish security for this debt by incurring an even greater debt. The same holds true when humankind on Earth fights old ills with new ones. Yet humanity on Earth frequently acts and thinks completely illogically, which is why it attempts, contrary to reason, to eliminate an old ill by introducing a newly contrived, newly produced one. This is illogical in every way. When an energy source becomes depleted, man on Earth simply plants and builds new, more powerful nuclear, oil, coal and hydro power plants. He does this regardless of the fact that through the utilization of these very same nuclear power plants, as well as the petroleum and coal power plants, he immensely pollutes the environment even further. Additionally, nuclear radiation may leak from atomic power plants, thereby endangering all terrestrial life. Moreover, these new energy sources will have become partially outdated already, or inadequate, upon completion over a 3-7-year construction period. Furthermore, these plants tend not to meet the new energy demands because, very likely, birth rate increases have not remained stable during construction periods. Indeed, it is likely that overpopulation has busily escalated over this same period. Hundreds of millions of people are born worldwide during the construction phase of a power plant and, of course, these millions of newborn human beings once again will require additional energy. It is obvious also that the incessant increase in the Earth's population is sending the demand for energy into an upward spiral. Because of these tremendous energy demands, the Earth must be exploited at an ever-increasing speed. As a result, ever more nuclear power plants, along with other types of power plants, must be constructed and put into service, thereby increasingly endangering and destroying all life forms. Other sources of endangerment and destruction to the planet and all life yet exist, for example, the unscrupulous use of chemicals, the American High Art Project in Alaska, nuclear testing and the commercial use of atomic bombs for the creation of lakes, waterways and subterranean expanses to be used as storage areas for rubble, sewage, solid waste and nuclear waste products. Mention must also be made of the clearing of rainforests and the burning of forests to criminally access parcels of land for construction sites, etc. Additionally, there are criminal sport activities which depend on combustion engines that burn gas, alcohol, gasoline or diesel oil, to name but a few. It is an idiosyncrasy of the Earth human beings, due to their unreasonable and purely materialistic thinking processes, to think and act inappropriately in almost every matter. They act illogically in many ways as well, and as a result, they do so also with respect to the problem of hunger throughout the world. They create numerous humanitarian organizations in order to collect funds, food and other goods to help the starving and suffering population. Yet, all the while, they manage on one hand to legally siphon off 40% of the collected funds into their own pockets as expenses.
Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed the show this morning on world population, water shortages, megacities, and the coming crisis. Visit us at exopoliticsohio.us. Just put Ohio space exopolitics into your Google search bar. Press search and you'll find the other sister website if you've listened to this show and never come to exopoliticsohio.us. I will be on freedomslips.com this evening with Susan Posal, and we'll be in Studio B. I'll be talking about some of these issues, some of the stuff that Susan's writing about on her website, which is called Occupy Corporatism. If you Google Occupy Corporatism, you'll find her website. So this should be an interesting show. I may even, in the last hour, talk a little bit about the Meyer material. Hope you're enjoying these shows. I'm enjoying bringing them to you. Have a good day today, and we'll be back with you at 8 p.m. Eastern on freedomslips.com, Studio B. Have a good day, everyone.